What do you think will be the first thing that happens when you finally get these two sides together again?
Very unclear at this point. Drawing up a contract sounds like a real estate deal. And what we're really talking about is whether a sovereign country that was invaded unlawfully by Russia has to give up land in a contract. Who is drawing up that contract, and whether doing that, if it even would consider that, is going to protect the remaining country. Nothing about that I'm hearing, at least not yet, some kind of a NATO force or other force along the border to prevent Russia from doing what it has done every time it has agreed to the sovereign borders of Ukraine, which is to invade Ukraine. Nothing about that. And the Ukrainian people, I don't think, want this. I don't think Europe wants this. I read that the latest Gallup poll shows that Americans want our support for Ukraine. So I heard what you said. I heard about energy facilities, et cetera. Last I looked, Russia was bombing the Zaporizhzhia region of Ukraine, which is where its largest nuclear facility, sadly controlled by Russia, is. Trump has suggested that maybe the U.S. would take over that facility. The Ukrainians have rejected that, right in the center of their country. And, let's know they gave up their nukes in 1994 in exchange for Russian respect for their sovereignty. And where are they now? So I don't see a ceasefire that's a serious ceasefire or a contract in Ukraine's near future.
I'm trying to follow the bead on all of this here, Jane. And by the way, we're hearing from President Trump right now. He's leaving the White House. So in the driveway, telling reporters good conversations on Russia and Ukraine today. It's unclear exactly who they were talking to, presumably in advance of the talks in Saudi Arabia next week. But you mentioned the nuclear plant. We talked about that with the Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, last evening. Also, the idea of a minerals deal, because I thought one had replaced the other. We moved away from the minerals deal, and we were going to start investing in energy infrastructure. Jana, it sounds like everything is still on the table. Here's what Secretary Wright told us about this pending minerals deal we've heard a lot about in Ukraine.
We often use this misnomer term, natural resources. Those resources have been underground for millions of years and they haven't benefited anyone. I call them natural materials. They only become resources when technology, capital, and human activity brings them out of the ground and turns them into resources. But to have the United States as your partner to develop materials that have been sitting there for a long time unused, that's upside to Ukraine, it's upside to the United States, and of course it's a joining together of the nations.
So, Jane, I'm trying to figure it out. Does the minerals deal then unlock the partial ceasefire on energy and infrastructure? We asked him about whether there'd be any interest by an American company in buying Zaporizhzhia. You said they hadn't heard from anyone yet. So how does all of this work together?
Well, I'm not a geologist, so I can't really tell you what minerals are going where. But last time I looked, Zelensky was in the White House ready to sign a deal with the United States about minerals. And if the meeting hadn't blown up, it was extremely unfortunate. And I think that the handling of that meeting was extremely unfortunate by the United States. Then we would have that deal. The Zaporizhzhia thing is different. Zaporizhzhia is a nuclear facility, the largest in Ukraine, which has been seriously degraded in this illegal invasion of Ukraine. Russia controls the technical facility. Ukrainians live around the facility. And my worry has been that if there's any more bombing in the region, the whole thing could melt down. And then we would have nuclear material probably in the soil. The energy secretary can explain this better than I can, polluting the whole region. Plus, if there is any, and I don't know why there wouldn't be, nuclear material in the air, and that blows toward Europe, arguably, or at least, possibly, that could count as a Russian trigger of Article 5 by one of the countries that has this pollution over it. So, I mean, it's a very complicated subject, but I think the bottom line here is that we're not getting very far on this ceasefire/deal, which was promised in one day, last I looked, when the president was elected. And I think a huge part of that is the Ukrainians are not full participants. And President Trump is talking about other things with Russia, U.S. investments in in energy in Russia, et cetera, and is saying things along the way that really make it hard for the Ukrainians to feel they're being treated as equal participants, which they need to be. This is a deal about their country, their sovereignty. They've been fighting for 3 years, and the losses have been significant. The U.S. promised to help. The U.S. public supports help. The U.S. Congress, if they would only speak up, supports help. Europe supports help. And if this thing goes down wrong, let's understand, Russia won't stay put in whatever the contract says. It will probably, which is the dream of Vladimir Putin, take or retake Ukraine and move on into Europe. And then what? I think that is a huge threat to the United States and a huge threat to our allies in Europe. And by the way, saying that we might not consider having the senior military role in NATO hurts NATO and again puts Ukraine in a less good posture for this negotiation.